This week we are caking Baby Shark. That was weird. My name is Lori and you're watching The Icing Artist. Start off, I baked a 9x13 vanilla cake and I'm just gonna use a template to cut out my shark. I know my printer is garbage, like why the lines? I'm gonna cut them out in 3 parts. One part really big with the body, and then on the 2 kind of side corners, I'm gonna cut out both of his fins and then we're just gonna glue that to the cake using some icing after. I mean, ideally it would be nice if I could cut it out in one big piece, but this way I can utilize the most amount of cake that I can by using the corners as the fins. And once I have all of my pieces cut out, I'm gonna start gluing those to my cake board just using some buttercream icing. And then, like I said, I'm just gonna glue those fins right on the cake. Once I have the main shark body glued on there, I'm just gonna add a little bit of buttercream to both the shark and the fin and kind of smush that together. Double checking with my template to make sure they're actually in the proper spot. I then crumb coated the whole cake using my buttercream icing. Going around the fins, I just kind of held on to the fin while I was icing the sides so the fin didn't start, like wiggling around on me. I hate getting into like little grooves like this. My go-to is usually just to like put the fondant fins on the cake board or something like that, but I thought I would challenge myself with this video, so I just kind of iced very carefully between the fins. But I mean, if you guys want to be lazy, just cut them out and glue them on the cake board, it'll be fine. If you guys have not subscribed to the channel yet, man, hit that subscribe button down below and ring that cute little notification bell, please. Once I had the sides and the top of my cake roughly smooth, I just grabbed a napkin and rubbed that over my cake and peeled that off, and that gives me a perfectly smooth finish. I mean, you can do it without the napkin, but like, why not cut corners when you can? Anything to make our lives easier, am I right? I then rolled out my Baby Shark yellow fondant. What is happening? Anywho, I just rolled out my fondant nice and thin and then rolled that over my rolling pin and back of my cake. I just quickly grabbed a pair of scissors and cut in between the fins. It was at that point that I realized that fondant was not long enough to cover the fins, but we're gonna make it work. I'm gonna leave that for a second, move on to smoothing out the top. I just pulled my fondant out and pushed it into my cake using my hands to kind of get it roughly stuck to the cake, and then use my fondant smoother to get it nice and smooth and flat on the top, and then again on the sides, kind of going around the fins and everything. Now for that problem area between the fins. I thought about cutting it off and then just putting in like a patch of yellow fondant, but instead I figured if I kind of pulled it down a bit and kind of smushed down with my hands, maybe I could stretch the fondant, and it seemed to actually work okay. I even grabbed the fondant smoother again and pushed some extra fondant towards the area so I had more fondant to play with. Most of the time, it's not actually about the mistakes that you make, it's how you fix them. I just used a small ruler to help smooth out that line and then trimmed off the excess around there, then just trimmed off all the excess fondant around the rest of my cake. Next, for its white belly, I just rolled out some white fondant, and I'm gonna use a template for this so I can get those rough lines. Cut out my fondant. I then use my template to mark where that's gonna go on my cake so I know when I lift up my fondant, I'm placing it in the right spot. Wet it using some water so that way my fondant will glue together, and carefully lifted that up and stuck it on the cake. Really just kind of wiggling it back and forth, kind of pushing it up and down, making sure I had it in the exact right spot, and then smooth all along the front. Again, just using your fondant smoother to help smooth it all out. This shark cake is not my first animal cake. I have made so many. If you guys want to see the full animal cakes playlist, just click the I. This shark is a happy shark, so I'm going to give him a smile, which I just used my template again to cut that out of some black fondant and glued that right on. I kind of just used my fingers to smooth the white into the black so it all looks nice and level. I then cut out my No, I am not saying that again. I know what happens when I say baby shark. Ugh! Baby shark, baby shark, baby shark, baby shark. I use my template for its eyes. That way I can get the perfect eye shape, and then just laid that on top of my cake so I can mark out exactly where it was going and cut those out of fondant. I always find it's easiest to use templates with cakes like this so that way all the characteristics of it look on point. Added on a little black circle for its nose. Then for its gills, I just used this like brownie orange colored fondant, and I thought I would use a circle cutter and then use a circle cutter again to cut out part of that circle so all you have is a circle edge. And then again use my template and just a little pin to mark where those gills were gonna go. Carefully glued those on with a little bit more water. And finally, for his last fin, I used my template to cut that out of yellow fondant. and then use that same fin, lay that on top of my white fondant, and cut out around it so it can sit nice and flush with the cake. I am loving how this one came out. Let me know down below if you're one of the 2 billion people who watch the shark song, or if you're like that one person who has no idea what's happening right now. And of course, guys, don't forget to come back here again next week so we can make something else in a cake. Bye, guys.
It's the end. It's the end.